Hello, I'm Marin. I'm here with Leslie Currier, an inductee into the 2007 Marin Women's Hall of Fame in the area of the arts. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Mary.
So to begin, tell us, where were you born, and tell us a little bit about your childhood.
I was born in Virginia and raised in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. My grandmother was an actress and gave up the theater to raise her children. And my mother followed in her footsteps and was a drama teacher and worked in different programs in the school. She worked with developmentally disabled children. She worked with an interrelated arts program that taught teachers how to incorporate drama into teaching history and literature and different things. And I have a brother and a sister, but of the two of them, I'm the only one who followed in the theatrical tradition of the women in my family.
So what was your childhood like?
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. My father was a pediatric surgeon, and my mother worked all the time that I was growing up. I went to, from 7th grade on, I went to a girls' school where we wore little uniforms. And the nice thing about that was that you could be outspoken intellectually, and you didn't have boys around. You didn't have to worry about that. And about looking silly in front of boys. So I think it encouraged my sort of maverick tendencies and also helped me to have no fashion sense whatsoever, having worn little plaid skirts for 6 years of my formative fashion life. But I left the DC area when I was 17 and went to college at Princeton University, where I felt like a bit of a misfit because everybody around me was pursuing politics and jobs where they were going to make money and take over the world, and all I wanted to do was theater. And there was no theater major. So I did lots and lots of theater, and I majored in religion, which was a way for me to get a general liberal arts education. It was really the one area where you could study ideas and how ideas have affected people, and I enjoyed that, but sort of felt on the outskirts a bit as someone who wanted to do theater, really couldn't do anything besides theater. That has always been my passion since I was a kid.
So after college?
After college, I came out to California with a boyfriend, thinking that I would take a year off. I had done a summer at ACT at the Summer Training Congress, and I had fallen in love with the Bay Area. And I came out here and was taking a year off because I'd been straight through school. I hadn't had a break. And my idea was, I'll take a year and then I'll go to graduate school. And after about 3 months of not being in a play, I started to get very stir crazy. I hadn't not been in a play for 3 months in a very long time, and I was living in Sonoma County, and I started looking around for theaters that I could work at, and I discovered this little theater north of where I was living in Ukiah, and went up there, auditioned for the next play that they were doing, which, as it turned out, was an evening of scenes from Shakespeare. And one of the directors, there were 2 directors of that Shakespeare sampler, vintage Shakespeare it was called, I guess. And one of them turned out to be my future husband. Since he was one of the directors, he got to choose what scenes were included in the evening, so somehow we ended up doing a couple love scenes together. And a few years later, we were married. One of the things that, so I really did sort of a self-made graduate program. The 3 years that I was in Ukiah, I produced plays for the first time. I hadn't done that before. I acted in a number of plays. I did educational programs in the schools. And the theater decided to build an addition. So I volunteered. I was the volunteer fundraising coordinator. I didn't make any money doing it, but I had a more than full-time job trying to raise the money to build this new wing onto the theater. And I was very proud that the building got built on schedule and on budget and completely paid for. No loan was taken out. And it's always great for me to go back there and see it. It's there's some office space and dressing room space and a small shop and a box office space that hadn't existed before at the theater. One of the things that my husband Bob, my soon-to-be husband Bob, told me about that I'd never heard of was the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland. And he said, you know, we should go up there and see some plays, and you should audition while we go up there. So I did in 1996, and about a year later I got a phone call, really felt like it had come out of the blue, from Pat Patton, the Associate Artistic Director, saying, would you like to come up here and act at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival? So that was really exciting. So I left Ukiah and went to Ashland. I was a fairy in Midsummer Night's Dream. I was the fairy in Orange. And I had another small part in another play, and I did a lot of understudying. And I realized a couple of things. I realized that if I was going to pursue a career as an actor, that I really needed to go back to my original plan of going to grad school. And also realized, being apart from Bob for those 7 months, that we really wanted to be together. So I applied to grad schools. A lot of things happened then. I applied to grad schools, then I got pregnant, then we decided to get married, have a child, and go to grad school, all at the same time. So I think I'm the first person, and perhaps the last person ever, to start the MFA program at UC Irvine 7.5 months pregnant. And I'm very grateful to the school, or perhaps it was just a legal thing, that when they found out that I was going to be 7.5 months pregnant when I started the program, that they didn't try to dissuade me or tell me that I couldn't do it. So went down to Southern California thinking that I would complete this graduate program, but the summer after that program, when my son Jackson was about 7 or 8 months old, we got a phone call, again sort of out of the blue, essentially asking if we would like to come to Marin and try to start up the Shakespeare Festival. So we decided that that would be a great challenge, and we came here in 1989 with Jackson, who was 10 months old. He learned to walk in San Rafael. And we would wake up every day and think, what can we do today to raise money to put on a show this summer? And we had some of the programs from the old festival, so we would sort of go through them and try to find phone numbers for people who had given money 20 years ago. And some people, like Max and Phyllis Thielen, were delighted to help us try to get started again. And other people, the one very sad phone call we made to a gentleman who said, I'm 90 years old, I'm blind and hobbled, and you know, I'm not going to be seeing any more Shakespeare. So we had sort of everything in between. We did a fundraiser a month trying to figure out what we could do to put on a play. And the summer of 1990, we put on our first production, which was As You Like It. And it was great. We had about 4,000 people come to see it. It was really exciting, and we were launched. And we've been at it ever since. It's been 18 years.
When you talk about being in the play or not being in a play, what is that like for you?
People used to ask me a lot more. They don't ask me so much anymore, you know, don't you miss acting? Because I was an actress for so long, and when I meet friends when I see friends from college again, you know, they're sort of sometimes shocked that I'm not still acting. But I get so much satisfaction out of producing, and I think many, many people love acting and can do it well, although to do it sublimely is a rare thing. And not so many people want to produce. Not so many people have the patience and the resilience and you know, and the desire to do that. And I think it's rarer, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of creating a place where so many different artists can come together and do their art. But I am an artist. I am a theater artist, and that's why I think it's been very important to me that I do find ways to be creative, because when I'm just doing the bookkeeping and doing the payroll taxes and doing the contracts and creating the marketing plans and working with the board and writing grant proposals and putting on events. I love that, and that's all great. But I've always needed to find ways to have creative outlets as well, which is why I've occasionally acted. It's always been fun to step in as an understudy, and I've written some plays and directed about every 5 years. I don't do it every year. And I have found hobbies that are creative hobbies that I really love.
In your spare time?
In my spare time, but I think you need to find the time, you need to make the time to keep your creative juices flowing.
So what led you on this path? I mean, your passion for drama, what people might have influenced you to pick, this as a chosen career?
Well, I've had lots of great role models and lots of great teachers, and I think there's two kinds of people in the world. I think there are people who plan out their lives, and there's lots of seminars that you can take about becoming goal-oriented and where do you want to be 5 years from now, and what's the first step that you need to take to get there, and how will you know that you're on your way? And then there's people like me who are more sort of follow your bliss. And I think that that I have the people who have been important to me have been people who I've just admired so much because they are passionate about what they do. I've had wonderful teachers, drama teachers, who've just been so passionate about the work, and I've met incredibly passionate theater administrators, people who love so much what they do, through different places that I've worked and also through organizations that I'm part of. It's great to meet your peers at conferences and things like that. And it's really kind of obvious. There are some people who running a theater is a job, and there's other people who do it because they love it. And so I've always been attracted to those people who are passionate about what they do, and I don't know any other way to live my life except sort of following my passions. I guess if I ever got, and burnout is it's a big issue in the arts administration world. Lots of people sort of leave arts administration and go to the corporate sector where you can make 10 times the money, sometimes a lot more money than you can make in the nonprofit world. But I've never really been tempted. I think it's partly also because the company has grown so much, and every year or every few months we come up with new ideas about things that we could be doing, new educational programs. Our first year we had no educational programs. Right now, we have programs in 8 different schools. We're doing weekly drama classes with over 650 kids. We are signing kids up for about 15 or 20 different summer camps that we offer this summer. We have a teen touring company every winter that puts on a Shakespeare play and takes it around for free to schools and senior centers. We have student matinees every fall where about 35 different schools come. As many as 2,000 kids will come and see A Midsummer Night's Dream or the Scottish play, or this summer it'll be Henry IV Part 1, which is maybe not part of the normal curriculum, but they'll come because we've established this, and there's schools that just come every year no matter what we do.
And how do you keep your energy level where it is and your passion and your interests so high? I mean, we all, in our jobs we all have new things that come down the pike all the time, but it's obvious that you're still loving it. It's still your passion. But how do you keep yourself from getting burnt out?
I think part of it is that every day, every week is different. Mm-hmm. It's a seasonal sort of a job. So in the summer we're putting on plays, and it can be physically exhausting. There's just a lot of hauling things around, and a lot of time, and then by October we're so happy to put everything away and sort of
seasonally.
Yeah,
There's
I think
sort of
that
a lull
helps.
and an ebb and a flow.
I think that helps. And then, we go into the work in the schools, which is a whole different kind of a thing. But I think also it has to do with, if you're always trying to do better, if you're always trying to improve, then you can't get tired of what you're doing. We put on different plays every summer. We put on 3 different plays every summer. So even though I've put on plays before, I've never put on these plays with these actors and this director and this production design concept and these production goals. So every play is a wonderful, exciting, brand new venture with a group of theater artists who are generally very excited to have been chosen, to be a part of this. We audition. It's depressing, but with all the different auditions that we go to, for example, this year, we probably saw either an audition or a resume for almost 600 actors.
Wow.
And we cast 17. So the acting company, they tend to be very enthusiastic about what they're doing, and very happy to be there. So I think that's part of it, surrounding yourself with enthusiastic people. And I think also, if you're doing something you think is valuable, the work, particularly the work that we do with students, we can see, many students, they have a chance to do some drama, they have a chance to be introduced to Shakespeare, and that's great, and then they live their lives. But there is always, at any given time, a handful of students where that the classes that they're taking at Marin Shakespeare, the opportunities that they have, are changing their lives, saving their lives. And I understand this kind of kid, because that's the kind of kid that I was. I was the kind of kid that if I didn't have theater, I don't know what I would have done. The times in my life when I've been depressed, waking up and knowing that I had a rehearsal to go to, occasionally that was the only thing that motivated me to even get out of bed, because I had that rehearsal to go to. And some of the kids that we see, it's such a big part of their lives. And their parents tell us, they tell us that it's really moving. It's really moving to see what an impact that you can have, what a positive impact you can have on people. And we have kids we started working with when they were 10 or 11 or 12, and now they're in college or they're graduated from college, and they're still doing theater, and they've participated with us in different ways over the years. I'm giving references for them for jobs that they're applying for, or we're hiring them to come and work with us as in different professional capacities. It's really exciting to have that impact on young people's lives.
So any significant challenges that you faced? I know, the Shakespeare company coming here and starting that up obviously was a big challenge, but personally, have you had to overcome anything significant that has, really, that you can say, this was hard for me and I had to overcome this?
Sure. It's not really a secret that I've had some health challenges recently. Less than 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, which I can barely say. And that was a huge shock, as I'm sure you can imagine. I had a series of relatively minor neurological weirdnesses. That's how I think of them. I'd had Bell's palsy, which is when half of your face is paralyzed, and I'd had sort of this semi-paralyzation tingly thing that happened for a couple months with my lower body, and I had some issues with speech and slurring my speech and my eyesight, particularly in one eye, and I finally got diagnosed, but I'd never heard of MS. I'd never thought about MS. I went on the web and I'm reading about it and it's an incurable degenerative brain disease, and that's very hard to take in. That's very hard to take in. My husband had cancer almost exactly a year before I was diagnosed to the day. He'd been diagnosed with a neck cancer, and he'd had surgery, and we'd been through a lot of going and talking to different doctors and figuring out different options, and we were still very fragile from that. And a year later, we still didn't know if the cancer was coming back or whether we'd made the right choices about his treatment options. So that's been quite a challenge, and I think the shock of being told that you have this kind of a disease, it hasn't quite worn off yet. I've been massively lucky with it. Lucky that that I got it relatively late in life. That I've had a very minor time with it. That they have medication for it now that works for a lot of people. That the medication seems to be working for me well so far. But that's those kinds of health issues that so many people face really make you realize how precious life is and how short life is, and how fragile we all are. And when I was first diagnosed, people said, "Oh, well, you have to slow down. You have to do less. You have to de-stress your life," which I laughed at. I mean, because my profession is drama. It's called drama, for a reason. And you can't take the stress out of drama. You can't take the drama out of drama. So that's been an interesting challenge, one that so many different people have faced in so many different ways.
What advice or pearls of wisdom do you have for young women of today? From all your experiences, from drama, from being a parent, from your educational experiences, from your illness. Yeah.
Well, I think my generation of women, we were sort of taught that we're the superwoman generation. We were taught that we can do everything. We weren't the first wave of women's lib. By the time I was growing up, it was obvious that any woman could do any job that any man could do at least as well, if not better. There was no reason why I would have a career and have children and have happiness in your life. Eat good foods and exercise and have friends and a social life and everything, and do everything. And I think that for my generation of women, that's been our challenge, is to figure out, first off, can you do everything? I've certainly tried to do everything. I got a couple teenage boys. I have a company that's expanding. I do my art forms. I write a play every so often and dance and do different things. And I think, but I think there are many women my age who have found either that they can't do everything or that they don't want to do everything.
So your advice would be to?
Well, I think my advice is to try to do everything that you want to do. Follow your passion. Mm-hmm. But I think people are different. Like I say, I'm sort of a follow your bliss person, but other people need to be more goal-oriented. And I think different things work for different people. So I think being true to yourself, being stubborn about what you want, going for what you want, not settling. I mean, there's so many times in life. I mean, we all have to compromise. We all have to settle. We all have to say, can't spend that money on that prop this year. Can't do this and that and the other. There's so much of that in our lives all the time. But you shouldn't give in to that too soon. Of course, everyone's going to have to compromise eventually. And I think that being a good person is very important. Feeling good about yourself, about feeling like you're doing something good for other people, for the world, feeling that there's integrity in what you do, integrity in how you run a business, or integrity in how you raise your children.
So let me ask you this in closing. What makes you really happy?
One of the great joys that I've had is being able to share my work, not only with my colleagues, but also with my children and my husband. Not everyone can work with their husband or partner. I meet people who say, oh, I could never work with my partner. I love getting away from my partner. But for me, being able to share what I do with my husband, with my kids have grown up with Shakespeare. They've been dragged to so many rehearsals where they've had to hear Hamlet over and over and over again, or watch actors try to make something funny, over again, or a great joy watching the audience on different nights react to plays in different ways. They've been just hit over the head with the boredom, the tedium of the great poetry of Shakespeare. So sharing that with them and with so many other wonderful artists is a great joy.
Leslie, thank you so much.
Thank you,
It's
Mary.
been a real joy to get to know you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks.